Greetings, everyone. Richard Cowperthwait for Northwest Access TV. Thanks for watching us. The election is getting ever closer, the November 6th general election, midterm election, and we're spending some time here on Public Access TV in Franklin County interviewing candidates for the legislature. Happy to report we have all 5 candidates running in the Franklin 5 district, kind of a sprawling district here in Franklin County, a 2-member district stretching from Richford all the way west to Highgate, Lake Champlain. And all 5 candidates are with us, and without further ado, Shane Rhodes, a Republican from Richford. Greetings, Shane.
Great.
Sharon Fagard, a Berkshire Democrat. Can't even talk. Greetings, Sharon. Thanks for coming. Linda Collins, running as an independent from Richford. Linda. Josh Aldrich, running as a Republican from Berkshire. And Mr. Daniel Nadeau, running as a Democrat from Highgate. Thanks for jumping on. Josh, let me start with yourself. You first announced you were going to run for Franklin County Assistant or Side Judge a while back. In fact, even had started campaigning.
Yeah, I did announce in the local newspaper that I was going to run for Assistant Judge. And I got a lot of emails and phone calls and said, you know, you had a pretty close race in 2016 for State Representative. We think you can pull it off this time. So we think you'd be better off to run for State Representative.
That's right. And I guess you agreed.
Yeah, I agreed with him, talked to the family about it, and we decided to enter the State Representative race.
And certainly, probably an understandable decision, certainly worth noting. It's an unusual situation. Again, a 2-member district and both incumbents retiring, not running for re-election. That's, of course, Chuck Pierce, Richford Republican, and Steve Bior, Republican from Highgate. So two open seats. Yep. Daniel, you're no stranger to seeking this House seat. Again, you ran last 2 times, 2014 as a progressive and 2016 as a Democrat. Have I got that right, or did I switch them around? You're running as a Democrat this time around.
Yeah, I'm running as a Democrat this year. You know, there's no Bernie on the ticket, so the kind of, you know.
So hoping 3rd time's the charm.
Yeah, why not?
Anyway, and start with you guys. Give us a little background. Tell us a little about yourself, Daniel.
My name's Daniel Nadeau. I've grown up in northern Vermont my whole life. I went to NCCS back when we lived in North Hero, and then when we moved over here into Highgate, you know, I went to college at Castleton, and I graduated in 2014, sorry. And now I'm working at Scampers, a local store in Swanton, and now I'm doing this.
Very good. Josh, tell us a little background about yourself.
Live in Berkshire, born and raised right here in Franklin County. I got 20 years on rescue in the town of Richford, going into my 20th year, I should say. I was appointed in 2015 by Governor Shumlin for the Drug and Alcohol Council. I ran for a state representative in 2016, and I'm a father of 7 children. Just want to try to help everybody out if I, get elected.
Very good. Linda, give us some background on yourself.
I'm a retired teacher of 35 years at Enosburg High School, teaching 12th grade English. I've been on the Notch board for 20 years, so I'm aware of affordable health care. And I've been chairman of the Richford Select Board for the past 10 years, so I'm up on municipal law, and I think I have a lot of experience. And been thinking about running for a few years and was encouraged to do so this year. So here I am.
Did you think about running under a party
Well,
affiliation?
I have always been kind of independent. I have, a story, but we don't have time. But yeah, I actually had thought about running. I'm a pretty conservative Democrat, kind of slash Republican. I mean, I am an independent. I can't go, but I had signed somebody else's petition to run. So I backed off, and then that person didn't run. So I was a little late on and was encouraged by both sides, Democrats and Republicans actually, called me, and decided to go as independent.
But comfortable running as an independent?
More and more so, I think, as the climate goes.
Do you think it's tougher? There's certainly plenty of independents around. Do you think party affiliation in general doesn't seem to mean as much these days, do you think?
I think there's a lot of people that won't leave the party, but I've been endorsed by both sides, so I'm confident that, maybe I can make a difference by everybody get along. I don't know, but I don't think we're as stressed here as they are in Washington about the back and forth.
Well, let's hope not.
Yeah, let's hope not, right? Right.
Sharon, give us some background on yourself.
I was an Air Force brat, so I lived all over the world and the country growing up. Then I married a Marine, and my kids were born overseas in Camp Butler in Okinawa, and we moved up to Vermont about 20 years ago, and it was the first place that ever felt like home. And I, since divorced, worked for a number of years in the nonprofit community. Back in Okinawa, worked in the civil service, hazmat, environmental compliance, volunteer on the restorative justice panel in Richford, and I never really thought I'd run for office, but I felt like it was time and it needed to be done.
Very good. Shane, tell us about yourself.
Yeah, born and raised here in Richford. I have a family business. I help my father. Contractor, I do masonry work. To run for office was never, like you said, I never thought I would. Like, it was never really a thing in my mind, but
So how did it happen that
a
you
lot of
jumped in?
people told me I should. Many people that I spoke with in the last year, family, friends, other people, you should do it. You seem good, like you would do something, you know what I mean? So we'll see if, I don't know.
Have you been campaigning much? Tell us about what kind of campaigning have you been doing?
I haven't had time for a lot. I did, this summer I took on 4 jobs, plus this campaign. It's been pretty tough time with just recently married last week, and I haven't had a lot of time for much. The parades, I was in a few parades. We went out and put some signs out. I met a few people, put some ads in the paper. We've done that. That's been about it. I'm hoping here pretty soon to start knocking on some doors hard.
Next week, we're going to start hammering things out.
So I guess I should note, Josh and Shane kind of running as a team, you two, or you
Yeah.
tell me?
Yeah.
Doing some
Yeah,
campaigning
we've been doing a lot
together?
of things together,
Yeah.
stuff like that.
That's right. About how much money are you going to spend on this campaign, Shane?
No, probably before it's all said and done, not a lot, $1,500–1,800.
Yeah,
Right now I've got, I don't know, $800–900 in it.
yeah.
I've been trying to do things as cheaply as I can. I don't have a lot of money. I didn't get a lot of donations. But I don't feel that money matters. It shouldn't matter in politics. I think that's where our politics goes downhill, is money. That's what it's about. Who can spend $1 million on a campaign? And
Very true.
it's who do you think will do the best, It's not how much money they spend, how nice their signs are or any of that. And I think that's the problem with it, personally.
Sharon, how much time? Tell us about your campaign. You actively campaigning? You do door to door?
Yeah, I am active. I had been working as a consultant for waste municipalities and through a nonprofit organization, and I put my work on hold because I feel like if I'm going to run, just like any other job I've done, that I should give myself fully to that job. Knocked on a lot of doors, have been really amazed at the people I've been meeting. A lot of really wonderful people in our district.
And roughly how much money do you think you're going to end up spending?
Well, I just finally bought some newspaper ads, and they're not cheap. I expect I'm going to spend over $6,000.
Really?
Yeah.
Linda, tell us about your campaign.
Wow.
You're not going to spend that much.
spent that.
No,
6
not.
years.
I'm figuring 1,500 to 2,000.
Yeah, and how actively have you been
I've been out
campaigning?
and I've covered 2 towns totally, and I'm working on Highgate. It's a place I don't know people, so I'm trying to get out over there. I've done a lot of flyers and on doors, things like that.
Yeah.
But not unfortunately, but being the chairman of the select board, they elected me to do that job, and I can't not do it while I'm campaigning, so I'm trying to fit it in.
Yeah. Josh, what about your campaign? How actively have you been out and about?
It's been fairly slow. I'm gonna start doing much more here in the next few days. like try to keep everything almost towards the end, so they keep everything in mind. We're gonna be doing a lot of sending flyers out door to door, newspapers. Like Shannon says, very expensive. It is very, very expensive.
And what are you looking? How much do you think you're going to end up spending?
Probably no more than $3,000, probably.
Yeah.
I've got some stuff left over from 2016, which helped me out. I didn't have to rebuy signs and stuff, and stuff like that. So.
Daniel, what about your campaign? How active?
Pretty active. Unfortunately, I work 50 hours a week at our family business, Scampers and Swine, but I get Tuesday and Wednesday off, so I've been doing door to door, getting some signs out there. Like Aldrich, I've only spent $200 this election cycle because I've had 100 signs that I've been using for the last 6 years, but I got 2,000 door hangers coming in next week, so that's gonna be fun.
And how much do you think you'll end up spending?
$211.
Really? $211.
Wow.
Interesting. Is there one issue, as you campaign, is there one dominant issue that your would-be constituents talk about, or one or two issues that you keep hearing about, or is it a range of issues?
It's a range of issues now, because unfortunately a lot of our rural towns are they're working family, they're working towns, they're working poor towns, and it's just getting more and more expensive for a lot of those working poor, The saying is, the economy's stupid, It's people need jobs, they need work, and unfortunately in a lot of these rural towns, unless you want to drive to Burlington every other week, there's nothing really out there.
Interesting. Josh, same question. Any dominant issue out there?
Taxes, high taxes. People are sick of high taxes, and I've had a lot of people mention to me that they'd like to see their retirements not taxed so much.
Of course, that issue came up. So I guess the legislature gave Social Security recipients some break.
A lot of people feel that they've been, tackled twice over it. Taxed twice on it. And if you really stop and think about it, they do have a pretty good point there. But a lot of it's taxes. Healthcare. Just the drug issues that we got here in Vermont. I mean, it's everywhere. But being on rescue for the last 19 years, I've seen a lot of, encountering a lot of, different drug issues, and it is definitely a problem.
Yeah. Linda, what do you hear?
Well, I've been reading all the candidates' replies, and I think we're all in agreement. We don't want higher taxes. We want great education, clean air and water. The people have to decide who can actually go to Montpelier and speak up for District 5 and for Franklin County. Mm-hmm. And because I think we're all in agreement with most of the things that have come up. Yeah. But my big issue with me is let's keep it rural. I want to make sure the dairy farmers stay and they're comfortable. And, there's so many things, healthcare and opioids, which is the root of a lot of our issues.
Sharon, what are most people what do you hear mostly about issue-wise?
Most of what I hear is people are having a very hard time getting by. Wages have been stagnant or have not kept up with the cost of health insurance, and especially with the high premiums and the high deductibles. And of course, MVP and Blue Cross Blue Shield are raising that again. And taxes are high. Yet we really love our schools. We want to take care of our schools and not lose our ability to make decisions locally. So we, as a rural state, have accomplished an incredible thing by consistently rating in the top 4 states in the nation for quality education. But as a rural state, that's expensive. And one reason why property taxes are so high for residents is we lack commercial presence. We don't have industry here. And I think that we need more industry, we need more business, and there are things we can do to make that happen.
Yeah. And Shane, any particular issues?
Taxes, the income, and like you just said, the inflation rates, they're not averaging out. They're not, they're not growing together. One's just way outgrowing the other. And to see businesses here. I think if we could lower the commercial tax to the bigger businesses and get real industry back. The town that we live in was a very industrialized town, very industrialized. We boomed and now we're dead. It's a dying, dead town. And another thing I think we're losing in this state is we're losing our youth. We're losing our children. They another problem that I spoke with a few people is to get a like a mentorship thing started with people that, you know, bring younger children to work with you, show them this is what you do. You know, you get up, you go to work, and you raise your family. And with the drugs and the crime and stuff that's starting to come into our rural areas, there's a lot of these kids that don't see that. They don't see, you know, they do. They see, well, he's rich and he's got a truck and he's got this, and they don't see how he got it. They say, well, why don't I have that? I should have that. It's not, well, get up and go to work. Don't do this. Don't do that. You know, support your family. We're losing it. And that's going to hurt us big time. And I think the people that are leaving there, and they are leaving heavily, are the working class. And, you know, what's left behind? They're taking their children with them. And there's just a few of us left that are, and obviously our children are the future of the state. And I think we need to start working on them too. We can't forget that it's all our health care and everything else. We got to bring them with us too. Remember it.
Another big issue in Franklin 5, which I probably don't have to tell you folks about, just water quality woes. As it happens, you've got two of the probably most troubled water places in the state in Lake Carmi and, of course, Missisquoi Bay, partly in Highgate. The legislature's been criticized for kind of year after year in recent years just kicking the can down the road, not coming up with a dedicated funding source to address water quality problems, which are certainly very, well in the millions. But again, I'm hearing, of course, from everybody. People are taxed out and stuff. Shane, is there, any way? It seems like a kind of a counter thing there. Lake Champlain, Lake Carmi, seems like it's going to take a lot of money if it can be brought back in good shape, but people are taxed out as kind of a conundrum. Can you deal with that?
I think the big thing is everybody looks for government. We don't look for our neighbors. I think if we just work together and step back away from the government. I mean, we're obviously going to need government funding, and it's going to be hard to get, but if we could scale back the government spending, and the government intervention on everything, and everybody work together as a neighbor, I think that solution could be found. And the other thing is it's a big problem, and it's taken 100 years for it to show its ugly face. It's going to take a long time for it to stop. And there's more than 10 problems that are doing it. And we need to come up with that cause and work together. I think there's more working together as a community more than funding, maybe, to fix these problems, I think could be done.
Sharon, your thoughts on, obviously, a big issue, but a big issue in Franklin 5, certainly.
Yes, and a contentious issue. I think it's really important, like Shane said, that communities work together instead of finger pointing. The primary sources in Lake Carmi is not just farmers, it's also grandfathered in septic systems and an increase in the amount of time that people spend on the lake. One of the things that came onto my radar this year was that in 1972, the bottle bill was passed in Vermont, and every year since 1972, any unclaimed deposits from bottles that were not returned have been given as a gift back to the bottling industry instead of used in our state. And that is, I don't know how many tens of millions of dollars. October next year, that will
be changing, correct?
That will be changing, and that money will be used for clean water projects. It is not enough. I can't help but wonder what we could have accomplished upgrading Burlington's wastewater, stormwater runoff, upgrading everybody's septics, helping farmers instead of giving these unfunded mandates to them. And I wonder if there are more places we can find efficiency, but we do need federal funding for this. And yes, we need to work together, but the answers are technological. and usually it requires money.
You mentioned the bottle bill. New York, you can bring your plastic water bottles over to New York and get a nickel. Shouldn't water bottles, or should water bottles and juice bottles come under Vermont's bottle bill?
So it's tricky. On one hand, I participated a number of years ago on Green Up Day, and we took a random sampling of the litter all over Vermont and assessed how much it was recyclable and what it was made of. And there are a lot of wine bottles and a lot of water bottles, obviously a lot of beer, a lot of twisted teas. And that seems like a great idea. But then how many people know somebody who lives near the New York border who collects all their friends' water bottles and then goes over there and gets their deposit? So we have to be really careful that we don't end up where our state border is next to a town on the other side where they have a high population, that we're going to be having more people returning bottles than we're actually going to have sold. Yeah.
Linda, water quality, huge issue. Any magical solutions out there?
No magic. I agree we all agree, but there is a surplus of money this year too. Some of that could probably go into it. Like he said, it's been 100 years at least that people have been dumping in the lakes. It's going to take at least a while to get back. So
You think there should be a dedicated funding source,
yes,
though?
I say take some of the lottery. I don't know. Add to the boat registrations, the fishing licenses. I mean, a lot of that is tourism, and it will not take it out of us. It'll bring it in from somewhere else, and if they want to use our lakes, and let's charge them a little bit.
Josh, that issue, any thoughts?
One thing I don't want to do is charge people more money for fishing licenses and stuff like that, because I feel that it's enough already. I think what we need to do is start giving municipalities more fines when they dump hundreds of thousands of what they're not supposed to dump. I mean, I feel that places are not getting, I think they're getting overlooked, and when in all reality, farmers should not be the only ones getting picked on. I mean, that's just the way I feel. I think that, like everybody feels here, we do got a water issue, and it's going to take a long, long time to resolve it, if it ever does get resolved. There is money always put aside. Is it enough? No. I don't know how they can come up with such a large amount of money that they say they need when they haven't even figured out exactly how they're going to do it or how they're going to come up with it. That just don't make any sense to me.
Daniel, is it a resolvable issue?
I think we're overlooking the obvious solution. If we're short on money, the last couple of years they've legalized marijuana. Let's tax marijuana. Every place that's legalized it and then found a way to tax it has made a bucket load of money. Let's use that money to fix the issues that's hanging around our towns.
Border issues. You follow Franklin 5. I mean, each one of the 4 towns has border crossings. I don't hear too much talk about this. Any concern? Sometimes I'll hear concern about just, waiting too long to especially cross back into the United States. Seems like going into Quebec isn't as big a deal. Does that issue come up in your conversations at all?
No,
not at all.
A lot of people have enhanced license nowadays, so it's just easier to get across the border. And
Josh, what about yourself? You hear any
I haven't
complaints or
heard any.
concerns?
No, nothing about that. I think that if they go through the border too fast, they're not looking out for the rest of us. I'm huge into safety and checking, doing what they've got to do and stuff like that. However, I have sat at the border behind vehicles myself for a very long time, and then they ended up getting skated to the side, and they look into that car a little more. Just all about safety at the border, safety everything, But as far as hearing anybody concerned, one thing I have heard quite a bit about is, why do the bikers get to come down here and ride on our roads and not have to pay nothing for it? But there's been a senator and a few that have...
Again, bicycle riders you're talking about?
Come down out of Canada, and a lot of people feel that they get the right of way on our roads. They feel that they should have to pay a little something. But I know that there was bills for that, and it got shot right down in
I
Montpelier.
think former Senator McAllister made some noise about that maybe 10 years or so ago, but I don't recall him getting much support for that. Anyway, Linda, here border, Richford, a big border town, the border
Yeah,
town?
I've waited at the border. My father was a border agent, and I just
Really?
sit there and say, thank God.
Of course, you have a big border
talking-
patrol
We
station
have a
in
huge
Richford.
border patrol station, I feel like, and we, this is time for me to plug the cameras. We have cameras in our town.
Yeah.
And the border patrol have used them to break some cases, as well as the state police and the sheriffs. So I don't mind waiting at the border because I just feel it's like at an airport. Good, check everybody. It's fine with me.
Yeah.
Bring a book.
Yeah, right.
Sharon,
Yeah,
has it
you guys.
ever come up? Anybody ever talk about any border issues?
I have talked to some folks who live close to the border who sometimes are concerned because they see law enforcement activity, and one was a woman who lives by herself, and she just felt like she was really glad that we have the cameras along our border and law enforcement. I talked to the Border Patrol agent and his wife, and she said, I worry about my husband because after 2 a.m., the Border Patrol is the only law enforcement around here.
Yeah, state police
They don't
tend
have
to be pretty
backup.
quiet from, 2 to 6 or so?
And I confirmed that with the state police that after 2 a.m. the sheriff and the state police are not around. So and I feel we want to make sure that the people who are protecting us have enough coverage that they themselves are safe.
Berkshire does get, maybe you said, does get some coverage from the Franklin County Sheriff's Department, or not? Not, you don't have any contract at this point?
I don't
So
think
just state police for Berkshire.
Yep.
Linda, what about Richford these days? Of course, you used to. I can remember your former police chief, Al Walters. I'm going back a few
You're going back,
decades.
Homer Combs, Al Walters.
When you had a
We-
municipal police department. Again,
We,
have you got some sheriff's coverage at this point?
We contract the sheriffs, and we
Contract.
also have a resource officer at the school.
Okay.
And he, in the summer, when school's out, he patrols in the daytime, so we have day and night coverage in the summertime. Things have been very quiet. I don't think you hear too much about crime right now, and I think we're in good shape.
Yeah. Shane, border issues? Anybody talk about the border at all, or not really?
I don't really hear much of, no. And I feel the same way you do. I would rather wait, check them, make sure. I plow for the customs for three winters.
Yeah.
I think they do a great job. The guys that are there, for the most part, I mean, everywhere you've got one bad apple. I mean, you know what I mean, or whatever. He kind of just waves them through. But no, they do their job quite well. I believe. And,
Another big issue in Franklin 5, plenty of issues, but education, Act 46, the school consolidation law.
get me
Talk to the
going.
folks, maybe especially in Franklin, but I think every town. Any thoughts? Have you got questions about that law? Does that law not look too good to you? What do you think?
no, I don't think it looks good. I don't care for any government intervention. I don't think that's right.
Do you think the state just should have stayed away from
Yeah,
that
they should
issue?
have stuck their nose out of it and let. I want to raise my children. You know what I mean? I'm sure everybody here that has children wants to raise them and make sure. I mean, I would hope every parent would be involved enough with their children to care about their education. I mean, and if you don't, I mean, there's plenty of educators in the school that no, they see these children that are in. And these small schools usually rank the highest. Leave them alone. You know what I mean? Leave them alone.
Of course, the hope was obviously that this would save money. I'm not sure that's panned out so well, but of course, you hear just every few days a concern, of course, being declining enrollment to the tune of, well, Linda, you'd probably know, tens of thousands of students with still, in most cases, higher education costs. So you can understand the concern. But Sharon, what about Act 46?
So Vermont state constitution guarantees that every town shall have sufficient schools unless the General Assembly deems that more convenient ways to educate the children in those towns. And the General Assembly did pass Act 46. But the Act 46 had off-ramp opportunities, and those criteria for off-ramp included schools that were high-functioning, at efficiency, low cost per student, and already had relationships with other districts in order to provide the full spectrum of services to their students. And we have schools that have met all of those off-ramp opportunities. they, by law, should be allowed to off-ramp, but the Agency of Education is ignoring that. And they have been pushing it through despite the votes in the towns, despite the law as it was written by the General Assembly. So I wonder, this is an executive branch issue, and the Agency of Education answers to Mr. French, who answers to our governor. Yeah.
Linda, I suspect you might have a
How
few
much
thoughts
time
on.
do I have, Richard?
So, Ben, were you unhappy with this law when it was passed?
As a teacher, I've read articles. I don't see really any big thing that's going to make a difference to the children's education.
Or big saving? You don't see big savings?
Well,
or-
I don't even care about the money. I care about what's there for the kids.
Okay.
We're number 5 in the nation. What are we doing wrong here? You know, and the fact that they told us we could vote and told us if we didn't vote the way they wanted us to, they were going to do it anyway. To me, that makes you dig your feet in even more. And every one of these schools voted no twice in our district. So if they want to do it, fine, let them. But if they don't, they have a right to, like he said, determine their children's education. A school is the backbone of the community, and you take that out and you kind of lose your identity, and sometimes you can do a lot more with a small school than you can in a big school.
If you get elected, do you think there's any?
I'd love
any
to be on
chance-
the education committee, and I'd love to look at I would love to look at the panel that's making these decisions.
Yeah.
We heard at a meeting that some of them were in private schools and didn't even go to public school. There's no teachers on it when it was taught for 1 year. Maybe we should look at these people that are making the decisions for the rest of our kids' lives and just check it out. So I would love to be on that committee.
Yeah. Josh, thoughts on Act 46, school consolidation?
We've got really great schools in our district. I went to Berkshire. Linda was my 12th grade English teacher in
Really?
Enosburg. Yeah. I think Governor Scott should really start putting his foot down on this panel, because I haven't gone to a lot of the Act 46 meetings. I went to the ones here in Franklin. They're not very professional, and they're not listening, like the folks said, they're not listening to anybody. And I mean, we need somebody that's gonna look at the whole picture, the entire picture. You know, like Linda had said, each school has voted it down twice. People have spoke, you know what I mean? Let their democracy rule for them, you know? If elected, if somebody wrote a bill, I mean, I would write it if I had to. I would be in full favor of repealing Act 46.
Daniel?
I agree. We should get rid of it. It's clear that the original purpose of the bill is not working in this area. There wouldn't be this much resistance if it was working, you know? I went to, I'm only 25. I remember high school. I remember middle school, you know? I remember going into North Hero. My graduating class was 8 people. There's no longer even an 8th grade class in North Hero Elementary. There probably won't be a 5th and 6th class. So for schools like that, I can see where it could be beneficial, but it's clearly been shown in this district that the people don't want it.
Another issue, an issue that got a ton of attention in the legislature, of course, gun control measures, with Governor Scott having a change of heart after the threat at Fairhaven Union High School. Your thought, did the governor go too far? Did he not go far enough on gun control measures?
It's hard for me because my family's always behind us. You know, I got my first 5-point buck when I was 12 years old. You know, my dad, we own 100 acres up in Highgate and my dad owns another. You know, we've always hunted. But at the end of the day, you don't need a 30-round magazine. You know what I mean? You don't need, unless you are shooting people, there is nothing you will be using those caliber magazines for, unless it's target practice. And I just don't see the point of them.
Josh?
I guess what concerns me the most over that is the governor did what he did, and then the criminal that did all of the down there at the high school got released. It was like everything got dropped. What good did that do? You know what I mean? I was one of the ones down there at the rallies, standing on the step against, all the S-55. Danny doesn't seem to think that we need big magazines like that. there's businesses here in Vermont. My father-in-law's got a business where he teaches guns, not hunter safety, but he does all like the Loomis employees, and they go around, shooting and stuff. A lot of people, don't deer hunt with 30-round mags, but they do go out with hobbies and stuff. The whole gun thing was just really kind of blew me out of the water, and it did a lot of people. And
So you're unhappy? You think you were content with the status quo? You're unhappy that any measures were taken?
if somebody, man or woman, whatever, they're not happy with somebody, it's mindset, and they're going to do it one way or another. They could do it with a knife. What are we going to do? Start banning knives?
They did in Britain.
And same with a drunk driver. We're going to ban Budweiser, or we're going to ban vehicles. It's really, you really got to, misspelled words. Is it the pencil or the person behind it? It's just one of them things where, it's not right.
Linda, your thoughts on, again, the gun control measures that were taken by the legislature?
I think some of them need to be looked at. I think they might be unenforceable. But I also grew up with guns. My father was in both wars, and they were in the back of my closet as I was growing up. But we have to face the reality that there are a lot of mass shootings now. So what we need to do, I think, is to try to stop that before they get the gun in their hand. As they say, it's not the gun that kills, it's the person. And there's a lot of, in schools, there's a lot of clues about this. And people need to now start maybe getting some more counselors or whatever, and really look at the deep-rooted issues of why people are out shooting other people, so much now that. And back when we were kids, it was the Texas Tower shooter, but that was the only one. And now it's like all the time. So I think it's a thing we have to socially figure out.
Sharon?
So there were 3 laws that Phil Scott signed. The extreme risk law, I fully support, where if somebody is planning to do harm to him or herself or to others, that absolutely they should have firearms removed from their ownership for 6 months. That just makes good sense. Also, the domestic violence hot scene law does permit police officers, law enforcement, to remove firearms if they are in plain sight, or if somebody says there are guns here, let me show you where they are. The next day, the accused is able to have arraignment, and within 3 days, if those firearms are not contraband, they're not deemed necessary for evidence, and this person is not an extreme threat, they get their firearms back. And I think both of those bills are solid. Those are both bills dealing with human behavior and human issues. S55 has a lot of components. Almost nobody I've met has a problem with banning bump stocks. And I agree fully, let's ban bump stocks. The numbers on the magazine limits are oddly arbitrary. So if I was running for office and I felt in any way insecure or threatened and felt like I needed to carry a concealed weapon and I decided to buy a 9mm, the standard magazine size isn't 15, it's probably going to be 18. So they picked an arbitrary number to limit that. And that doesn't make sense to me. I feel that the magazine limit is unenforceable. They don't have date stamps on them. I think that law enforcement had an issue with them. I don't support the magazine limit. In a perfect world where everybody followed rules, that'd be great. But people want their magazines. If they're target shooting, they don't want to have to change their magazine every 5 or 10 bullets. But I do also like the aspect of S55 where they raised the age for buying a rifle to the age of 21, unless you've taken the hunter safety course. And if you grow up in a hunting family, you've already taken the hunter safety course. So at the age of 18, you can buy it. You've served in the military or law enforcement. None of that, though, prevents you from owning one. So if your parents or grandparents want to gift you a rifle, they can. And I thought about my own children and how, without any experience, I would want my boys, they've, done some target practice, but I wouldn't feel safe with them owning a firearm unless they were trained. I would help them buy one after they got safety training.
Shane, S55?
Shall not be infringed. Second Amendment reads, shall not be infringed. You know what I mean?
Nothing you like about the law?
The laws that we have currently, I sell firearms. That's what I am. If the laws that were already in place were enforced, a lot of these crimes could be stopped. If they do, a law is only good for a law-abiding citizen. A criminal does not care about their. That's why we build prisons, for people that don't care about laws. That's why we have probation officers. That's why we have these things. They're criminals. They are going to do it. The weapon used is an inanimate object, and it does what it is told to do. And I don't feel that anybody here that is a law-abiding citizen, or anybody in our district, or anybody anywhere, I don't care where it is in the world, if you're a law-abiding citizen, you should have the ability to have anything that a police force has, and whatever. I mean, short of tanks and jets or whatever. But as far as a small arms collection, whatever. And I am I believe in the Constitution to its core. Our founding fathers wrote that document for a reason.
You mentioned speaking of prisons, some Vermont inmates just got shipped from Pennsylvania down to Mississippi. Mm-hmm. Should the state have its inmates in state, or I guess the state felt they got a better deal doing that? Have you got any issue with sending Vermont inmates that many miles away?
Well, the inmate trade started in the 90s during Howard Dean, and the theory of it is to get them out of their environment. Take the gangbangers and whatever and get them out of their environment in the cities and put them here in rural areas, and we'll take these rural guys, send them out. Maybe they see hard prisons, tough prisons. They won't want to go back. Well, it does two things. It turns our rural towns into epicenters for drugs that we're seeing now. No problem turns overnight, just like that. It takes years. Now we're starting to see it. These guys come up from the inner cities and they see these rural towns and they see the market. And they see how easy it is, how laid back we are. And guess what? It just opened them a new place. It gave them a market. And it took the guys that weren't gangbangers, they weren't real criminals. They were kids off the street here that did something stupid and got locked up, and now they're criminals. You see them coming back, and they're criminals. They're the real thing. They've turned our prison system. That thing was stupid. I mean, that was. And our inmates are traded like cattle, as far as I'm concerned. They trade from state to state, and I don't know. I don't like it. I don't think that's right.
Sharon, what about shipping some Vermont inmates to Mississippi? You think ideally should all Vermont inmates be in state, or should the state look for the best deal they can get, or what?
Well, it's a complicated issue. I know that Phil Scott wanted to make a deal with Corrections Corporation of America to build a new prison in Vermont.
In fact, there was talk about a new prison in Franklin County, I think, in the Georgia area for a while. Didn't hear it, kind of faded away pretty quickly.
And I think in part because one of the most powerful lobbying groups at the national political level is the prison industry. They make a profit, and medical care, medical insurance and prison and education shouldn't be profit driven. They should have a different focus. But so in Vermont, and I learned this because I volunteer on the Restorative Justice Panel, it costs about $80,000 a year to house a female inmate, and about $50,000 or $55,000 a year to house a male inmate. And a lot of people who end up incarcerated are there because they have mental health issues. And this state is appalling in the lack of mental health services and supports. And that ties into violence, whether it's gun violence or other violence. And shipping our prisoners is more affordable for us. It costs half as much. But one reason why it's more expensive to have women in prison here is they've generally never had any kind of health care. Not dental, not mental health, nothing. And
all women inmates are in the South Burlington facility, is that correct? Or is it
no,
I think that's the case.
I think so. And I've talked to some people who work in both facilities, and I had a conversation with a lieutenant at the state police barracks, and he said that, things have changed in the last 20 years. We saw Richford change, where there was a lot more kind of in-your-face violence, a lot more domestic violence, a lot more assaults, a lot more breaking and entering, robberies, and that has calmed down. But that's been replaced with drugs, hard drugs. I don't like sending our inmates away. I know that after civil union was passed, that inmates who were sent out of state were targeted for rape, our male inmates. I think that having talked to corrections officers, that Vermont has a different attitude toward our prisoners. We try to have relationships, we talk with them, and it gives them more opportunity to still be human, maybe come out of prison and be more functional. I think we, in fact, need to help put rehabilitation into our prison system more so that people come out with more personal skills, self-control skills, job skills.
Linda, some thoughts on that
I kind of
big
agree
issue?
partially with both of them, and I've been doing a lot of study on prisons lately, and it is a money-making thing. I mean, they're charging the inmates for a bowl, $1.80 for a plastic bowl if they want to eat out of it. It's ridiculous, and I don't think we should send our young kids out somewhere hard because it just hardens them. And maybe if the inmates that are in our prisons are from somewhere else, they can go back to that place that they. Because all of our inmates aren't Vermont residents, so it's a hard one.
Yeah. Josh?
Sometimes I don't think prison's the right thing. I think that there could be different punishments. Put them to work. I do lawn care for the town of Georgia, and they had some prisoners come and build all brand new fences all around all the cemeteries. It was all, I want to say free labor, but they didn't have to hire a contractor or anything like that. I guess with them going out of the state, it does save the state a little bit of money and stuff. I don't know. It's just, some people that are in prison probably shouldn't be there, and some that are out on the streets need to be there, which I think we all probably agree on. Sharon said, try to put different things into the prisons, try to, get them, jobs or once they come out. That all sounds good and everything, but that's going to cost something, which we all realize it's going to, but I don't know.
Daniel?
I agree with a lot of what he's saying. I think we should be keeping our prison in-state. And, his work idea is that, in California, they use prisoners to fight forest fires because... it's a good, smart idea. It teach them skills. It'll give them, respect and something that they just normally might not have. I also agree that the prisons need to be tougher because there's a lot of stuff that's just getting either slapped on the wrist or slid on by. Like, my family owns a business in Swanton. We've had people shoot our window, we've had people break in at night, we've had people steal stuff, we've had people do drugs. It's a nightmare sometimes, and half the time the cops take them, and then you see them down on the street giving you the middle finger. It's, they get a slap on the wrist, and they either flip on someone they know or do flip on a bigger person, and they're not punished. They're taught that if you rat on the next guy above you, they'll overlook your situation. And there has to be a penalty for if you break the law.
Down to just a few more minutes. Again, work at Scamper's family business.
Yep.
Boy, is there a
For 22
business? It
years.
just seems like everybody's looking for help. Right? Is Vermont running out of people willing to work, or is this a huge concern? You might have a better handle on this than some folks, but of course, the state population is pretty much stable, if not slightly declining, certainly graying, but it seems
state
like...
population as a whole is going down, but the population of northern Vermont, from Burlington to the Canadian border, is actually going up. Look at how much St. Albans has changed in the last 10 years. If you would have told me there would be microbreweries and Chinese restaurants and everything like that in St. Albans, I would have laughed in your face because it was nothing like it is nowadays. I think that development will continue, and if I'm elected, I'm going to continue. I want Swanton to be redeveloped. I want Highgate to be redeveloped, and we're going to go right along the Canadian border. We're going to rebuild those rural towns because that's where the population's shifting. You know, I went to college at Castleton. You know, every day I went out to groceries, I drove through Rutland, and I saw basically it was abandoned. Like there's just you drive off the main road and it's 3 rows of abandoned buildings because the population shifted from there. If the population is shifting north, like the censuses and everything are telling us, we need to be taking advantage of that.
Josh, kind of a people problem? Have you got some optimism, as Daniel seems to, or it seems like everybody's looking for, good help these days?
I myself own 2 businesses. My other half owns Child Care Center in Richford. All of our businesses are based out of Richford. Well, one's out of Berkshire, but and it's hard to find the right person, especially for childcare, because the state did the new mandates in September, and if you ain't really got a degree in college for early ed, you might as well just forget it with working within, the daycare center and stuff. It's hard to find good help, and when you do find good help, it always seems like the wage is not high enough, and they either go out of state or go somewhere else to get what they need to survive. Nobody should have to work 2 jobs, 3 jobs to make ends meet, It's just...
I do. No.
Linda, any optimistic
shot.
or pessimistic on this issue?
Is this our last?
I'll give you probably maybe a 30-second closing.
Oh, okay. Well, I just read a thing in Vermont Business that Franklin County is looking good, and the jobs are there. But I was talking to someone in Highgate yesterday, and we decided it was a good thing we were all retiring because we could fill all these jobs that they can't find help for.
Yeah.
Mentioned. Oh.
Quickly, Daniel.
The median, Vermont has some of the oldest workforce, so that's one thing we're going to have to take into account for building that new economy.
We're still working, Dan.
Sharon, just quick, don't have much time, but again, you want to jump into this issue at all?
Well, I've talked to a number of people from different businesses that say they can't fill their CDL jobs. Because people can't pass the drug tests. The ones who want to drive can't pass the drug tests.
I'm hearing a number of businesses are just kind of forgetting about drug tests these days.
Right, but of course that's a federal thing. For liability purposes, you can't have somebody who can't pass a drug test driving professionally.
It's a lot of
But with other jobs too, wages are low and the cost of living is very high. And in talking with a lieutenant from the police barracks, he said that even police hiring is down across the nation. It's not as low in Vermont, but that the younger generation balk a little bit at putting the 60-hour weeks.
So, no, there are not a ton of people looking to be police officers.
Right, or just putting in the long hours. And I do think there's a bit of a generational culture shift.
One knocked on the door.
Shane, anything on this issue we want to?
Yeah, it's that's why I mentioned the thing with our children, showing them the work. There's no government intervention. Every time the government bumps their nose into it, they ruin it. I'm sorry, it's just true. They came into our families. They said in school, well, if your parents are doing this, they hit you. You call us, and boy, it's on. And now the parents don't discipline. The schools discipline. Well, then they stepped into the schools and said, well, you can't do that. You got to be nice. Well, now what we got? We got people that won't work. Well, why do you have it? I should. And yeah, we got to do something. And I don't know. That's a hard one. And the work ethic thing is gone. It's gone.
Down to just a couple minutes. I'll give you this kind of closing comment here. We'll start this end of the table here. Daniel, make your case in about 30 seconds or so. Why should people send you to Montpelier?
You should send me to Montpelier because I'm young, I'm energetic, I got new ideas, online jobs, all those kind of things that people can do from home on their computer. When I was in college, I transcribed. It wasn't great pay, but it's a job that you can do on a computer and you don't need too much experience, We need to modernize Vermont. The whole,
Yeah, we need to move on. Josh, why do you want to go to Montpelier? Why should you
I
be
want to go to
elected?
Montpelier to help out people, help out Vermonters, not just in my district, the entire state. I want to help with these high taxes that we got. I want to help with keeping control in our local schools. I want to try to clean up some water. I just feel we need somebody down there that's going to listen and bring ideas, and I feel that I would be the good person for that.
Linda.
I think I have enough experience in various areas that I could be of assistance. And I want to say this, I can say something no other candidate can say. 3 of my former students are running for office this year. Even though I hope I win, I'm proud of them for coming out at young ages and sticking their necks out for this.
Very good. Sharon?
I'd like to go to Montpelier because I'm willing to work really hard, do the research. The job is going to be 8 hours of reading, writing, negotiating, et cetera, every day. And I think all of us are probably a little nervous being in front of the camera. I'm putting all of our Q&As from both of the local papers on my website so people can be well informed when they vote. Yeah.
And Shane?
Like Dan said, young, and I'm not afraid to say what needs to be said. The more truth, the better. And I feel like we're losing some of it, and the truth needs to be spoken. So if I get there, that's what I promise to do. If I say I do it, I'll do it.
Very good. I really appreciate all 5 candidates coming. I know everybody's busy. Appreciate the time. Again, thanks to Shane Rhodes, running as a Republican from Richford for the Vermont House. Sharon Fagard, running as a Democrat for Berkshire from Richford. Linda Collins, an independent from Richford. Mr. Josh Aldrich, a Republican from Berkshire. And Daniel Nato, a Democrat from Highgate. Good luck again. Election day, of course, November 6th. And if you're watching this, early voting's been going on for a while. 2 open seats in this district. So anyway, but thanks for coming. Good luck on Election day. And again, early voting's underway.
Thanks.
And thanks to Zach and earlier Elizabeth for doing all the hard work. We'll see you. Thanks for watching us here on Northwest Access TV. I'm Richard Cowperthwait.